Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a piece of literature that absolutely shook 19th century society to its core. We're unpacking Henrik Ibsen's masterpiece, A Doll's House. Now, if you think domestic drama is all just quiet conversations over tea, well, buckle up, because this is the story of a massive unraveling that literally changed modern theater forever. To us today, a play set entirely in a cozy middle-class parlor might seem, a little tame. But critics back then? They thought Henrik Ibsen was actively trying to destroy the very roots of society. They were calling him insane, subversive, and immoral. The mere idea of a woman leaving her husband was completely earth-shattering for a culture deeply rooted in patriarchal stability. But here's the thing. Ibsen wasn't actually calling for society's destruction. He was demanding its reconstruction. So here's our agenda for today. First, we'll map out a Victorian-era scandal. Then, we'll explore Ibsen's real-life inspirations, meet our key characters in The Puppets and Masters, uncover a dangerous web of secrets, and finally, discuss that legendary conclusion in the door slam heard worldwide.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, a Victorian-era scandal, the invisible villain.
To really grasp the stakes of this story, we have to travel back to the incredibly suffocating rules of the upward-moving middle class. The absolute key here is understanding what historians call bourgeoisie respectability. Picture a strict Victorian lifestyle that insisted on total virtue, purity, absolute freedom from debt, and rigid adherence to social customs. Essentially, this concept acts as the invisible villain of our entire story. It was this rigidly unforgiving system that demanded total social obedience, and honestly, it would punish anyone who stepped out of line with absolute ruin.
Now, what's really wild is how these rules specifically restricted women. I want you to just imagine, for a second, putting yourself in our protagonist Nora's shoes. You're living in 19th century Norway, where you can't vote, you can't own property, you have zero access to higher education, and legally, you are forbidden from borrowing a single cent without a man's permission. It was a world where women were totally, legally, and financially dependent on their fathers and husbands. So the stakes for any women trying to navigate outside those strict boundaries? Astronomical.
Moving on to Section 2, Ibsen's real-life inspirations. Fact bleeds into fiction.
Ibsen didn't just invent this incredibly oppressive atmosphere out of thin air. It was personal. He was deeply scarred when his own father, Knut Ibsen, squandered their family's wealth. This devastating loss reduced the whole family to extreme poverty and total public humiliation. It actually forced a young Henrik into this lonely apothecary work when he was just 15 years old. Having been pushed out of polite society that brutally, Ibsen developed this fierce, almost laser-like focus on the survival of the individual. He learned super early on that society could be utterly unforgiving if you fell from grace.
And the connections to reality go even deeper. In real life, Ibsen's friend Laura Keeler actually committed forgery to borrow money to save her sick husband. When she got caught, the fallout was catastrophic. Her husband divorced her, her kids were taken away, and Laura was literally committed to a mental institution. Ibsen was completely aware of this absolute tragic ruin, and it directly inspired Nora's fictional secret loan to save her own husband, Torvald. Knowing those real-world consequences really gives the play this chilling undercurrent of reality, doesn't it?
Let's look at Section 3, The Puppets and Masters, Archetypes of Society. So, with those oppressive rules and heavy real-world stakes laid out, it's time to actually meet the people living inside this dollhouse. On one side, we have our core conflict perfectly captured. There's Nora, the seemingly cheerful but deeply conflicted, oppressed housewife. She's quietly taking small jobs, scrounging money in secret just to pay back that illicit loan she took to save her husband's life. And completely contrasted against her is Torvald, her incredibly condescending banker husband. Torvald feels it's his absolute unquestionable duty to provide the moral reality for his wife. He instructs her on how to eat, dress, and think. He treats her like a naive, intellectually inferior child, literally calling her his little squirrel or his skylark. He truly fundamentally believes he possesses total moral superiority over her.
Then on the other side, we have this fascinating mirror image couple. First is Krogstedt, the mercenary social outcast. He's the desperate lender blackmailing Nora just to keep his bank job, simply because society has been entirely unforgiving of his own past crimes. Opposite him is Christine. She's a principled, exhausted widow and Nora's old friend. She initially chose a marriage for money over love purely out of duty to her family, and now she finds her life completely empty. Yet Christine acts as this powerful catalyst for truth in the story, ultimately choosing honesty over deception and actually offering Krogstedt a much-needed second chance through love.
And kind of hovering around all of them is Dr. Rank, a close family friend. What is so fascinating about him is that his physical decay, a literal fatal disease, serves as this perfect metaphor for the moral corruption of the society around him. Dr. Rank sees reality clearly. He faces his impending death and his secret love for Nora with total honesty. And because of that, it leaves Torvald as basically the single character in the whole play who is entirely blind to his own true, deeply flawed nature.
Which brings us to Section 4, A Dangerous Web of Secrets, the Ticking Clock. Now we're shifting gears into the plot, which honestly transforms from a simple domestic drama right into a high-stakes psychological thriller. Just look at how tightly compressed this timeline is. Over just a couple of frantic days, Nora's carefully constructed illusion of a happy life just completely unravels. It kicks off on Christmas Eve, when Krogstad threatens Nora with blackmail over her forged loan. By Christmas Day, Torvald fires Krogstad. That very evening, Krogstad drops the blackmail letter into a locked letterbox, and by the very next night, Torvald finally learns the horrible truth. The pacing is absolutely relentless.
The tension really spikes right here on Christmas Day. Nora is desperately begging Torvald not to fire Krogstad. She is trying absolutely everything to protect her secret without actually revealing it. But Torvald, he stubbornly ignores his wife's frantic pleas, feeling this immense sense of absolute superiority over a man he considers a complete scoundrel. Torvald sends Krogstad a dismissal letter anyway. He's entirely unknowingly sealing his own wife's fate and locking in Krogstad's ruthless desire for revenge. From there, we get this steady, agonizing buildup of tension as Nora tries to distract Torvald with a frantic dance just to keep him from checking the mail. It all drives straight up to a terrifying climax. This is the excruciating moment when Torvald finally opens that locked letterbox, reads Krogstad's letter, and discovers Nora's forgery and the secret loan. And the rapid falling action? It immediately follows this devastating revelation.
And that leads us to our final act, Section 5, the door slam heard worldwide, illusion versus reality. This explosive discovery brings us straight to the resolution, where the grand illusion of morality violently collides with cowardly reality. Remember Torvald's earlier promise to share every single burden with Nora like a true husband? Well, instead of sharing her burden, Torvald brutally turns on her. He completely repudiates Nora, calling her immoral and literally stripping her of her right to raise their children, all just to save his own public reputation. But the moment a second letter arrives from Krogstad retracting the threat, Torvald pathetically offers instant forgiveness. The very second the threat of a public scandal disappears, he acts like absolutely nothing happened. In that chilling moment of absolute whiplash, everything just crystallizes for Nora. She realizes she will always be nothing more than his doll. Her entire marriage has been a complete sham. She finally sees that Torvald doesn't truly love her or even understand her. He just loves the idea of her and the control he has over her. To him, she is merely a cherished plaything with no true identity, no independence, and absolutely no respect. Not in his eyes and not in the eyes of their society.
So, rejecting his incredibly conditional love and the suffocating rules of bourgeoisie respectability altogether, Nora makes an utterly unthinkable choice for that era. She walks out on her husband, she walks out on her children, and she famously slams the door behind her, stepping out into the total unknown to educate herself and find her true identity. That single, decisive action, the slam of that door, literally signaled a brand new era in modern theater.
Ibsen's masterpiece forced the 19th century world to look squarely in the mirror and confront its own deep hypocrisies. But the power of this explainer doesn't stop in the past. It leaves us with a highly provocative question to take away. When we look at our own society right now, are the walls of the doll's house truly gone today, or are they just painted a different color? Think about that as you reflect on Nora's journey. Thanks for diving into this with me, and I really hope this provided a clear window into one of theater's most pivotal works. Keep questioning the world around you.